Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Fabian Rodriguez. I'm an IT admin at Recast Software, and today I'm going to show you how to set up Windows Labs with Microsoft Intune. And this is a quick summary, just a little bit of information on some scenarios, what Windows Labs is. So I'll just cover it really briefly. Have you ever made a mistake on a device and needed to get into the local administrator account to recover it? Or have you encountered an environment where all the local administrator accounts shared the same credentials? I might not have been that person, but no worries. Maybe you're here today to fix that issue. You want to make sure that all your local administrator accounts have different credentials. So that way we don't have to store it in our password manager brain. We can make sure that Microsoft Entra stores those for us, and gives us back some brain space. This is where Microsoft's feature Windows Local Administrator Password Solution comes into play. And I'm going to name this LAPS for short. That was a really long word. So what this is essentially going to do, and I mentioned over here, is it's going to manage and back up the password of our local administrator accounts to Microsoft Entra ID. And let's take a look. What are some of the benefits of Windows Local Administrator Password Solution? Well, I already named a few, but I'll kind of cover them again. The first one is it's going to help us protect against pass the hash attacks. And it's also going to help us keep our local administrator credentials unique. Hey, remember I mentioned we don't want those credentials being the same again. Let's free up some of that password manager brain space. And also, it's going to allow us to sign in and recover devices that might not be accessible. Actually, one of my coworkers, and if he watches this, he's going to know who he is. And just a quick snippet on this. One of my coworkers actually brinked his computer and couldn't even get to log in or couldn't even change Wi-Fi settings to get connected to the internet. So we needed to, use the local administrator account to, update drivers, go change things. So, it really saved their butt. And now let's take a look at some of the prerequisites. What do we need in order for us to set this up? So my blog is a little dated, so I'm going to go and head over to the official documentation. My requirements are the same. They're just a little different wording since we had the Azure Active Directory changed to Entra ID. So I'm going to show you the official documentation in order for you to get the correct licensing requirements. So first, you want to make sure that you have an Intune subscription. You want to make sure you have a Microsoft Intune Plan 1, which is the basic Intune subscription. And also, you want to make sure that you have a Microsoft Entra ID. If you have the first one, you should have the second one. So as long as you have an Intune subscription, you should be fine. Let's take a look at the device edition and platform. Devices can have any Windows edition that Intune supports, but must run one of the following versions to support the Windows Labs CSP. So as long as you are on a Windows 10 version 20H2 or later, you should be fine. Same with Windows 11 version 21H2, you should be good. So as long as you have that, you should be good. And in order for you to set this up, you should at least have the Intune administrator role. That's really kind of the simple way of putting this. And now let's take a look at actually setting this up. There's really three parts to this. The first one is going to be enabling Labs in Microsoft Entra ID. And the second part is we're going to have to enable the local administrator account on the devices. By default, that is disabled. And third, we're going to have to set up Windows Labs within Microsoft Intune. So as long as we get those three covered today, we should have a working Windows Labs solution. So let's go ahead over to Microsoft Entra Admin Center. You can get to here by going to entra.microsoft.com. So once you're here, you'll want to go and head over to devices on the left-hand side and click on Overview. And under Manage, you want to click on Device Settings. And we'll scroll down and we'll stop here at this section under Local Administrator Settings. And really, the only portion that we're going to focus on today, and the one that's important for us, is going to be this bottom one. It's called Enable Microsoft Entra Local Administrator Password Solution. It's a mouthful, I know, LAPS. So we'll go ahead and enable this to yes. By default, it is set to no. And I'll cover these later in a different video, but today for simplicity, we'll just make sure that we have that enabled to yes. So let's go ahead and click save, and don't be like me and bang your head on the computer trying to figure out why this wasn't working. And that was the reason why. So don't be like me. Perfect. So now that we have that to yes, let's go ahead and enable the local administrator account. And we can do this by going to Microsoft Intune. So if we go to intune.microsoft.com, devices, and under manage devices, we'll click on configuration. Here, we'll go ahead and create a new policy, and we'll select Windows 10 and later for a platform. And for a profile type, we'll go ahead and click settings catalog. And we can name this something like enable local administrator account. Perfect. And we'll go and click on add settings. And here we'll want to go and type local policies security options. Perfect. I spelled that right. So we'll click that. And there's a lot of options here, but really the one that we're going to focus on today is this one, accounts enable administrator account status. So we'll go ahead and select that. And we'll want to get rid of this pane over here. So we'll click close. And here, honestly, it's just a radio button to the right to enable. So as long as you have this enabled, we should be fine. We'll go and click next, scope tags, assignments. I'm going to set this to all devices, but I would highly recommend you set this up in a pilot group. This way you can catch any troubles or hiccups along the way without rolling it out to your production. But if you want to live a little, you can roll this out to all users, all devices on a Friday afternoon. I'm just kidding. Do not do that. So we'll go ahead and click next, and we can see our policy, what we enabled, what we called it, etc. We'll go and create. Perfect. So now we have that set up. So far, we've enabled labs inside of Microsoft Entra ID, and we've also created our configuration policy to enable that local administrator account. So now, one last step, we need to go to endpoint security, and under manage, we'll click on account protection. Here is where we're going to set up the policies for our Windows Labs configuration. So we'll go create policy. We'll select Windows as our platform. And here we have 3 different options, but really the one that's important to us today is local admin password solution, Windows Labs. So we'll go and create, and we'll name this something like Windows Labs. Perfect. And here, really, this is where we're going to do a lot of our work in terms of setting this up, setting some of the configurations. So let's dive right in. The first one is backup directory. This is going to allow us to set up, where do we want to set the local administrator account password to be stored. And we have a few different options. By default, it is disabled, so the password will not be backed up. The second one is we're going to back up the password to Azure AD only. And the third option is back up the password to Active Directory only. Pick the one that works best for you and is best for your environment. But today, I'm just going to do back up the password to Azure AD only. And once we click on that, we see password age days as an option. So by default, I believe this is set to 30 days. So this is going to essentially say like, hey, how long do you want this password stored in there before getting rotated? So for me, honestly, I'm going to set this to about 7 days. Makes it a little easier for us to keep that unique and rotating. And then the next one is the administrator account name. So by default, the account that's going to be used for this is the local administrator account that's built in to your device. But if you want to set up a different administrator account, such as Superman, you want to make sure that you have that set up prior to this, either with the PowerShell script or setting it up as a configuration profile somewhere. But this won't work out of the box if you put Superman here. It's not going to create a Superman user inside of the administrator group. So today I'm not going to cover this. Maybe I will at a different time. So I'm actually just going to use the built-in local administrator account. And the next one is going to be password complexity. This is going to tell us how complex do you want the password. Do you want it pretty easy? Do you want it pretty crazy? Or right in the middle? So let's take a look at our options. We see large letters and small letters, whole different type of options. But really the one that I care about is going to be still focused on security, but also on the end user experience as well as the IT admin experience, because it's still going to be complex, but this is going to have improved readability. So win-win for the admin and win-win for the end user. So we'll go ahead and click that. And we can also set the password length. Do you want this to be short? Do you want this to be really long? Well, let's take a look at what we have when we configure this. By default, it is 14, which is totally fine with me. I think that's a reasonable password length. And I just want to mention this. I want to stir the pot a little bit. Is the setting has a minimum allowed value of 64 characters. I don't know what type of admin is setting this up with 64 characters. I bet your end users aren't your favorite fans. But hey, it's there for a reason. Someone might have a use for this. I'm curious. If you do, please DM me. I'm curious to see what the requirements are and what industry you're in. That is crazy. Well, anyways, let's stick to 14 and move forward. And now we're going to do the post authentication actions. This is essentially going to say, hey, what is the actions you want to take upon expiring of the configuration grace period? So let's take a look at some of our options. Here we see the first one is reset the password upon expiry of the grace period. The managed account password will be reset. That's pretty reasonable. The next one is reset the password and log off the managed account upon expiry of the grace period. The managed account password will be reset and any interactive logon sessions using the managed account will be terminated. And this is by default. I think I might go with that one, but let's take a look at the next one. Reset the password and reboot. Upon expiry of the grace period, the managed account password will be reset and the managed device will immediately be rebooted. Well, I think that's a great option as well, but I think I'm going to use this default option. It's still a great option for us to keep security in mind, but also the end user experience so they don't have to reboot. So let's click that option and let's do the post authentication reset delay. When do we want this to kick in? After the end user uses the credentials? Let's take a look at not configured. So by default, this is 24 hours. I'm actually going to drop this down a little bit more. I think 24 hours is a bit long, but you might have a use case scenario. I'm going to set this to 1 hour. I think it still gives us a reasonable time to allow them to, use those credentials if they have to use them again. But I think 24 hours is still a little too long. So we'll go ahead and click next. Next, and assignments. This is where we're going to do our assignments again. This is a small lab for me, so I'm going to deploy this to all devices. Highly recommend you to set up a pilot group and test this in waves. So we'll go ahead and click next and save. Perfect. So now we've kind of gone through the gauntlet together. I appreciate you being here. So far what we've done is enable apps in Microsoft Entra ID. We enabled the local administrator account on the device, and we set up Windows Labs with the account protection section over here. So now we're just going to wait and allow for these policies to kick into the device. And after those policies kick in, we're going to see how do we get that local administrator password from an IT admin perspective, and how does it look from an end user perspective. And stick around to the end. I'm going to have a bonus for you. I'm going to show you how do we reset that local administrator password just in time. So if you don't trust your end users, they might have wrote it down. They're like, hey, I have this app I've been wanting to download, but I keep getting these UAC prompts. No worries. We can make sure that we change that password just in time. So if they did want to use that again, it wouldn't be valid. So thanks for sticking around. Let's go head over to our virtual machine and run a quick sync. So we'll let this run and give this an Intune minute. And I took that quote from Johannes. So thank you. I thought that was a good one. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. So far we've let those policies kick in, and just for transparency, this might have taken a little bit over half an hour. I just let it run on the back end on my end. So speed might vary for you. It might be quick, it might not. So just wanted to give you a heads up. But the good thing is the policies did kick in, and now we're ready to get that local administrator password and see it from the Intune side. And we'll also show you the end user experience and how they can use this local administrator account. And then, as I told you, I'm going to show you a bonus to rotate that password just in time. So in case your users were thinking of downloading an app that they had thought about before, or for whatever reason, let's not leave it in their hands and rotate that password if we have any suspicion. So first, let's head over to Microsoft Intune, and we'll want to go over to Devices on the left-hand side, and we'll go over to Windows, and I just have this device right here, the Windows VM03. And on my left-hand side over here, I'm going to click on Local Admin Password. Perfect. And we can see that that last password rotation was on 10/21/02. So now let's take a look at the local administrator password. So the nice thing is we can see the account administrator name, which is administrator. And the important thing really is the local administrator password. So this is the end user experience when you need to grab the local administrator password, and it's stored inside of Microsoft Intune, so you can just extract that and give it to your end user. So now we don't have to manage that password anymore. And it rotates every 7 days, as mentioned in our policy. So today is the 29th, and it will reset on the 5th. So we give it that week before it rotates again. So let's take a look at the end user experience. So we'll head over to our virtual machine, and say the end user wants to run a PowerShell command as an elevated user. So let's go ahead and over to PowerShell and run as an administrator. Here we'll want to do /administrator. And let's grab that password. So I'm going to copy that. And it ends in 2NR. So just to verify with you all, that's the password that we're using. So just to let you know that I'm using that password, it's ending in 2NR. So we'll go ahead and click yes. Perfect. So I'm glad those credentials worked, because that was a pretty long password. So I'll search for who am I, and perfect. We can see that this user is running as an administrator. So, and I will verify that again, and I'll verify that if the end user tries to use their actual credentials to launch as an administrator, it will not work. So, and they'll get the prompt that this request operation requires an elevation. Perfect. So now they did their PowerShell elevation, and let's go ahead and rotate that password. So if they want to grab that app, or if they want to run something else, they need to go through authorization and permission first. So let's go ahead and take that away. So let's go back to Microsoft Intune. Perfect. So let's head over to our Windows devices, and we'll click on our only device here. If you are using a larger screen, you will see different options. So here we'll take a look at our 3 dots, and here we'll see rotate local admin password. So let's give that a rotate, just giving us a prompt. Hey, you're going to rotate this. So as we can see, the rotate local admin password is pending. So we'll give that a second. Perfect, and that was pretty quick. So let's go ahead and head over to our local admin password, and we can see that that was changed at 10:56, and it's 10:57, so that's pretty darn quick. And we can see that it is a totally different password. Thank you for going through this gauntlet together with me. We have successfully enabled Windows Labs with Microsoft Intune. So now we can free up space in our password manager brain. We're staying secure and making sure that we are setting local unique passwords. Thank you so much. I hope you learned something. And if you have any questions or comments, please make sure to leave them in the comments section below, or feel free to reach out to me. I can't wait to hear all about this implementation in your environment. Thank you.